Yo, what's going on, Speed? How you been, bro? Yo, your mic's off, brother.
Yeah, no, I was answering. What I was saying is that I've not been well. I've not been well. And if I've been relatively well today, I can say that I've been better.
Why do you say that, man? What's going on?
Well, man, anytime there's a tragedy, I'm always going to be bummed out about things, right? Um, you know, I'm a very sympathetic individual, right? I can sympathize with folk. I am very uh, em- empathic. So, when somebody goes through some hard times, especially if I find out about it, especially if they vent with me, um, I can really feel what they're going through. And
Who
I
you
don't know,
talking
maybe,
about, man? Who you referring to?
well, in general, I guess the world, right? Because a very empathic person will feel a lot of pain uh, and a lot of joy and a lot of excitement and exhilaration, depending on what the milieu of the world is at the moment. But right now, I guess personally, because I never really make it about me personally, I'm just whatever, like I don't really get too moved by things, except chick flicks. Chick flicks move me. I'm not too sure why. If it's a chick flick, especially if it's like a sappy comedy or whatever, if it's a comedy and it's a little sad or they just start playing piano music, I'm gonna get sad. But otherwise, I'm pretty chill. But most recently, we've had a lot of passing of people that I actually do, you know, didn't know that I realized I cared about it, or maybe I start to care once I realize that they're gone. But I just got the bad news that Bray Wyatt, one of the wrestlers for WWE, died. Right, and the reason that matters to me, right, is because I am old enough to have seen wrestlers in the '80s. Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Randy Savage, all these, Rikishi, all these guys coming up, Undertaker, The Rock. I was able to see all these guys, Jake the Snake Roberts. Uh, yeah, I was able to see these crazy real life heroes, right? Real life cartoons. Uh, display their skills and their talents and just bring, maybe it wasn't wholesome, it sure felt wholesome entertainment to myself and to my family. um and there was a time when I just walked away, right? Because there comes a moment in a wrestling fan's life, I would imagine it happens to everybody, where you're a child and you're watching these guys do the thing and you're just left in awe, your mouth agape as you're watching these guys fly from the ropes and landing on bodies, flesh on flesh, pounding and hitting and just putting hair and flipping them around. And you're a kid and you think the highest of these guys because they're just incredible supermen and superwomen. And then somebody spoils the fun and they say, oh, it's all fake, right? And you're like, what are you talking about? This ain't fake. Look, he's hitting them. He made him fly. No, it's all fake. Maybe it's your eldest cousin or your own parents that they say, come on, look at that, he didn't even hit him, right? But anyways, you're just always turning back like, what are you talking about? But then, your eyes open up to the reality of things and you realize that they're not really hitting themselves. And you know this, as a boxing fan, you know this even sooner than most people because you know what a punch really looks like because you're watching men and women slowly kill each other in the sport of boxing. But over here, you still say, okay, well, it's just a softer hit because the point of it is to set him up for this RKO or this body slam, whatever, right? You're just thinking they're doing it for fun, and obviously they don't want to kill each other. They're not fighting for a WBC belt or IBF belt. You know that they're fighting for different belts, but nonetheless, there comes a moment when you walk away from the sport because you realize it is kayfabe. You realize it is. Uh, I'm not going to use the F word, but uh it's definitely written. I'm not gonna use the F word. So I walked away from the entertainment that is wrestling, and bit by bit over the years I've been able to pick up things here and there and catch as much as I can, because now I have children and they are going through those phases, of course, that especially my littlest one, he thinks it's real. And my other children, they josh him on the side, but not too much. And they have they told him that it's fake. The middle one will say that. The eldest one just knows that you just don't talk about certain things, because if you didn't know it was scripted, or if you didn't know that they were entertainers, then you're the fool, right? So she doesn't say nothing because she doesn't act like that. But when we sit down as a family nowadays to watch wrestling, whether that's AEW or New Japan Pro Wrestling or WWE or Lucha Underground, whatever it is, we just absorb it. We don't put up a front, and we just let the world come to us, whatever that is that they want to present us. We just let it and we enjoy it. But I did walk away from the sport for, I would say, maybe.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I tuned out, bro. You take
Yeah.
a simple question and make it into a 30-minute conversation.
Oh, yeah. You're
No,
gonna realize that I can shoot the shit like a champ, bro. Like,
yeah, I can tell, bro.
it comes from my days of being an alcoholic.
What you're referring to is what in wrestling a lot of people call it a mark, right? And have you ever heard of that term when it comes down to a wrestling fan? A mark versus a smart?
No.
Okay, so just to give you like a little putting a couple of things together. So when a person calls somebody a mark when they're watching wrestling, right? A mark is somebody that like kind of believes that wrestling is real, that their emotion is into it, and they buy into the storyline and the characters, right? Even though like the level of entertainment, like you said, it's not really punching. And then a smart is kind of like they understand that it's fake, but they buy into like the storyline and then the character, and then like the Logan Paul, like you're trying to find the moments to be authentic. So I don't know if you ever heard about that term. I'm surprised that you haven't heard, because when you compare like when WWE started, right, and then ECW, and then there was like Lucha Underground with Robert Rodriguez on that El Rey network, right? There is always a different level of authenticity. Just to kind of summarize what you were saying. But again, man, answer the simple question. You said that.
No, the question of the authenticity.
Hold on. You said that you're a very emphatic person, but then you're like, I don't really get into a lot of things unless it's chick flicks, bro. What's going on, man? What's going on? What happened?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at, right, is that a couple of wrestlers died in the past 2 days. A legend from back in the days, 70s, 80s, maybe up to the 90s, and I was just barely trying to absorb that loss. Why? Because I know that I grew up with the guy. But you see, here's the thing, right? A lot of people are into nostalgia, right? They collect little shit and they go back and do all kinds of shit like that. I really don't have nostalgic feelings because I don't remember so much about my youth, right? A lot of I don't know why. I've done a lot of drugs. I'm sure that there's probably some stuff that runs in my family when it comes to memory, short-term memory retention, long-term memory, whatnot. Um, so I really don't care much about going back and watching Ninja Turtle cartoons to feel like a kid again. That's not me. But because other people are into that, and because I know that it's an issue for me to uh, hold on to memories, I try to go back in time to understand what it is that my life was like, to fill in gaps or to have a better understanding how much better it may have been then versus now, and how things may be better now versus then, right? So I was barely processing this report that this legendary wrestler, a very influential wrestler, died yesterday, and I'm trying to research more about the guy when all of a sudden one of my family members sends me a screenshot that Bray Wyatt died today from a heart attack. And now, if you don't know anything about Bray Wyatt, right? Bray Wyatt is probably, in my opinion, one of the best things that happened in the past decade when it comes to WWE storylines. So uh, and this is at a moment when I was coming back into uh, the the sport of wrestling, the world of wrestling, because I had an opportunity to go back in college and make friends that were younger than myself that were big fans of WWE, and we developed like this friendship around school and little funny shit like WWE, and they were so knowledgeable. They were these geeks, right? They were so knowledgeable, and they were making me feel like I was missing out on some stuff. And then I started catching up with them, and then I started getting back on that. And I just walked into the entertainment of wrestling right when Bray Wyatt was doing this thing. And man, oh man, oh man, Bray Wyatt was entertainment. Bray Wyatt was scary. He was the fiend. He was the fiend incarnate. He did so much stuff. In fact, if you know anything about scripted wrestling, like Lucha Underground, Robert Rodriguez's El Rey Network, a short-lived wrestling series, you remember that series because it was so well written, right? It was like every episode was like a mini movie. Um, the seasons were great, and for WWE, when I walked into that, Bray Wyatt and the family, which were like these Louisiana degenerates, uh, guy walking around with a goat mask, another guy that was like a huge stone-faced Michael Myers type guy. These three guys were doing the same thing that Robert Rodriguez was for Lucha Underground. And me being a fan of Lucha Underground, got into it, and then all of a sudden, the dude's dead, right? He stepped away from the sport because of health related matters, but he was barely trying to come back. And then COVID uh, affected his health, and then something in his health lingered there, always presenting the fear of death. And then after that fear of death, it became a reality, and the guy died today. So I was barely processing and trying to
What
understand.
is Bret Wyatt's most notable fight? Did he fight like John Cena? Did he fight the Undertaker in WrestleMania? Because I've never
So
heard of him.
speaking of okay, so speaking of the Undertaker, right? So you
No.
see that.
Answer the question, man. What is his biggest momentous moment?
Well, he had a lot. He did. In fact, what he done is that he terrorized everybody. There wasn't like, let's say, one big thing, but I know that he was a big enemy of Seth freaking Rollins for a while, and he ended up breaking his leg. And another guy, because he did. This is how it goes. He terrorized everybody. He went to this one other wrestler. His name is Finn Balor. Uh, Newer guy for me, newer guy, and he snapped his neck, right? So these are very traumatic events. I can't tell you, oh, he was all doing this or doing that, because he was basically terrorizing everybody. Um, but it was more of the presentation that impacted me. The fact that he was making these short videos, which were almost close to like snuff films or something directed by Rob Zombie or something to that effect, and then he would wrestle, and then he was very violent and talented in his matches. He was just a very impression. He was a very he was a wrestler that left an impression on you, and that's why I'm still like, man, it was short lived. Uh, that's one guy that I really liked, and it came right at the moment when I was getting back into wrestling. So it was just like, it's just one of those bummer things.
Yeah,
Little
it sounds
bummer.
like a sicko. I mean, I don't know
He
too
was a
much about
sicko.
him, but yeah, it sounds like a sicko. I am not, you know, I don't
He
know.
was a sicko. He was a
Yeah.
sicko.
So I guess, yeah, sickos always leave an impression. You know what I mean?
But of
Um,
course, it's a character. So see, you're the mark.
maybe,
No,
but
because these
again,
are characters. So
it's
you
kind of
can't
like,
judge the guy outside of his world of wrestling as a sicko because he played one on TV. I mean, that's the thing. You just talked about it. So you're the mark, and I'm the smark. I'm just saying this. When you watch a movie, like I think you had an episode live just a few weeks ago when you and your dame went to watch different movies. She went to watch Barbie. You went to watch Oppenheimer or whatever his name is, and you know that regardless of what's taken on, that whole thing is a script. That's all
yeah,
fake.
but it happened though.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I
But it
mean,
happened.
if you watch Magnolia, a great movie by Paul Thomas Anderson, uh, do you still analyze it and criticize it and look at it as one of the greatest movies, even though it's fake, or are you like,
Absolutely,
oh, it's fake, it
because
doesn't matter?
because them acting it gives it a level of authenticity.
No, it's not authentic though. That's
No,
just
no, no,
acting. In
no.
fact, this is what
Check
WWE
this out.
is. It's
Check
acting.
this out. No, listen to me. Let me break that fourth wall. Okay. The reason I say it's authentic and it becomes real and a tangible thing because it happened. So, for instance, and it was recorded. So, for example, let's look back at one of the scariest movies ever created, The Exorcism, the first one. What happened when people on set were there? What happened? The people were dying, right? There was all these incidents that people were talking about that were happening in real time because people started getting spooked about it. Look no different from Alec Baldwin when I guess he's supposed to have blanks on this gun on set of a movie called Rust, if I'm not mistaken, and somebody, maybe himself, shot the blank gun and he actually killed the female cinematographer, right? So again, going back to Brett Wyatt, even though that is his art, it's always a cop out to represent like, oh, I'm just the artist representing this art. People are like to separate the two, and I'm like, no, you can't. So for example, let's say like Alex Jones, right? He likes to when he was going about making all these millions of dollars selling this product, going about speaking his truth. What happened when the courts came up? Oh, I'm just playing a character, man. None of this is real. So it's a cop out. So it's not true. In reality, it's all true. See, this is what happens when people be like, oh no, it's fake. No, no, it's absolutely real. So whoever you play, you read the script, you read the lines, and you embody, try to personify that character, try to bring it to real life. So this guy, Brett Wyatt, the reason he can play it so well, right, is because he brought it to make it real. He made it authentic. He is who that person is. Now, if you took off all the makeup and the character and the act, is he a nice, genuine human being? Probably. But just like most human beings, one person, it's the tale of the wolf, right? You can be loving and charming, and then the other moment depends on the situation. You can be a fucking asshole. You can be a killer. You can be amongst other things. So, nah, man, I'm not gonna give you that. Oh, he was just nah, bro. We know what we're talking about. That
No, no. So no. Look, listen. Uh, what's his name? That little short guy. That Top Gun guy. What's his name? The little short guy.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Right. Tom Cruise is not in there a jet pilot. I don't care how well he plays one on a movie screen.
To fly jets, though.
Okay, that's great, but he's also not a time traveler, and he's not a guy that continues to die and he comes back to life and continues to die and come back to life, right? Look,
On the
these are
phone.
what I'm trying to tell you is this: you're taking things like if there's no such thing as a profession, right? These are professionals, so they know how to separate their real life from their employment. That's what I'm trying to say. This guy is a screenwriter. You can actually write things that you don't feel. Like for example, I'll give you an example.
Or it's not
A
authentic. You know when
a
you're watching
stenographer,
stuff.
a stenographer, right? Those ladies that are like typing on the keyboard, like 100 words per second. When the judge is sentencing some person, right, or whatever, their job is to just write the words. They don't have to. They don't have to care what the other person's saying. They don't even have to agree with it. Maybe that person is saying something and they're forced to type it, and maybe they feel so inclined to just change a word here and there, right, to change a word and not be authentic because it affects them. But you know what they do? They completely leave their emotions and their personal feelings aside, and they just do their job. So that's what I'm saying. Bray Wyatt was a
That was
professional.
a terrible example. That didn't make no sense.
No, it makes sense because look, just a couple of weeks ago,
You're
uh,
no, check this out. What that
look, a
stenographer
couple of
did
weeks,
in terms
maybe
of
a month, maybe
comparison
about a month.
is
No,
beyond
it was probably about a year ago or so, or maybe two now.
horrible.
Um, there was this politician over there in Europe or something
Well,
that
hold on, man. Listen. R.I.P. Brett Wyatt, the demon.
yeah,
I'm just seeing the profile
absolutely.
is there on your right side. You're getting a little too far away from just from him. You know, listen, R.I.P. to him. I don't think I ever saw him wrestle.
Then you
Uh,
suck.
no, because I watched guys like the Rated R Superstar, Edge. I saw Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle. Those guys were amazing athletes, right? And they didn't have a shtick like shenanigans, right? Rey Mysterio.
That just means
I saw
that
the
just
best.
might mean they're not creative enough.
Nah, I just feel like this whole thing that you have to hook up with Rob Zombie and make the snuff films just to get in character. That's a little. I mean,
No, I didn't say that they were snuff films. I just said that they were uh uh
light.
horrific imaging. Look, as a person that loves movies, of which you do and I don't, I believe you'd approve because it's the creativity behind the work that he's doing. He doesn't just show up to fly through the air, throw a couple of kicks and slaps to the chest, and then walk away, and then oh, he did his job. No, he put some visuals behind it, put some music behind it, put a storyline behind it. He was giving you layers. He was not just wrestling; he was giving you layers. In fact, he was one of the better creative geniuses in WWE, and I'm telling you, the past decade. So I think before you belittle the guy's career, you start misconstruing my words to imagine what this guy really is. I think you might just want to give yourself a shot and watch, I don't know, maybe a couple of his top 10 matches on YouTube and catch up on the guy. And I bet you think otherwise and say, hey, this guy was pretty cool. But
Yeah,
anyways, it's long
maybe
gone.
for sure, man. I just want to address the crowd really quick. Mr. Larry Liston, how you doing, sir? He came on and said a couple of coming fights next: Boots versus Ennis versus Cody Crawley, and Keith Thurman versus Stanionis.
Ah,
Looks like he's in serious talks with Crowley right now. Ennis will fight Crowley for an IBF interim belt, and Thurman will fight Stanionis for his WBA regular belt. That's amazing fights right there. Hopefully, it happens all in one night without the cost of pay per view. And then he follows it up with, yeah, the plan is to make the winners fight each other. Also, Shakur is currently in talks with Frank Martin, another potential matchup for the WBC interim title. So a lot of these things that Larry Liston is saying is it looks like they're going to be stripping Devin Haney for his WBC and offering it up to whoever Shakur Stevenson fights. And same thing with Terrence Crawford. If Ennis versus Cody Crowley is supposed to happen, it's going to be for the IBF interim belt. Now, the interim belt, is that the same thing as the just champion, or is it like a second tier where it's like, but yeah, they might look to strip. I know the WBA has a super belt and then the regular belt, which Danionis has to fight the mandatories for, and then Bud doesn't. But
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I think an interim belt, if I'm not mistaken, I think an interim belt is when somebody vacates or moves up in division, and then there's that vacancy. The fact that they're an interim, I think it's the same thing as an interim champion. They're in the meantime, they can be considered a champion upon a vacancy. So I don't even think that guy would be. I don't even think they'd have to eliminate themselves for a belt. It would just be perceived that the interim champion would be the champion, would have the belt, and then his opponent is to fight for it. But yeah, that's what I believe. But those are very interesting fights right there. Very, very interesting fights. Um,
got you. And then I respond to that saying I like Frank Martin to fight Keyshawn Davis instead, and Shakur to fight Jermaine or Edwin de los Santos. But either of those two fights are great. And then Larry goes, yeah, Jermaine Ortiz is the backup plan for Shakur if Frank Martin doesn't take the belt. Easy
jeez.
in-house fight to make. Vince Vargas says, I'm old school. Junkyard Dog.
Junkyard Dog, yeah.
Tito Santana.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then the last comment,
yeah,
Beat
yeah.
says,
Those were
Will
great.
Smith versus Eubank, the rematch on September the 2nd. Before we get to that, enlighten me about if you know a little bit of Junkyard Dog. I don't think I've heard the name, but I don't ever watched him fight. And then Tito Santana. Do you know anything about those two?
So again, those were wrestlers in the 80s, man, and maybe in the 90s. When I was a kid, my kid years are the worst ones because I really don't remember nothing. I probably won't remember that I made a jackass of myself in this conversation talking about Bray Wyatt, showing some emotions that are probably not well spent. But I do know that Junkyard Dog is oh, so Mr. Vargas, always a pleasure. I'm planning. I'm trying to get. I have this friend. He's a big time WWE or WWF because he goes that far back. He's a big fan of the WWF, World Wrestling Federation. He knows so much. He collects so many things. I'm sure he has his whole uh I don't know, a stash of old toys, comic books, VHS, all kinds of stuff. And I'm hoping to bring him on one of these lives because I'd really like to pick his brain. Because if anybody knows anything about Junkyard Dog or Tito Santana, that's gonna be him. And uh, he's younger than myself, and he's very witty, very smart, and a very amiable individual. So I'm sure that if we can get him on one of these lives, hopefully tomorrow, it'll be a spectacular night because I do want to know more about these wrestlers. I do want to know, and this is what I was telling homie Ricky. I was trying to catch up on these things because not because of nostalgia, but because I'm trying to refresh my memory. It's almost like when I play Sudoku. I know Sudoku is a practice so that you can remain sharp. So I sometimes play Sudoku just so that I can keep my mind, you know, functioning and sharp. But if this happens, I'm sure that tomorrow's live may be very entertaining, especially if we're gonna discuss anything that's not boxing related, which I'm all right with. I love boxing, but I also love other stuff sometimes.
Yeah, he goes, nah, Junkyard Dog was a black dude. Had the song Grab Them Cakes, WWF. It's in the early years. Jim Duggan, Iron Sheik. Jim Duggan had the 2x4, and George the Animal Steel. Just,
The Iron
showing.
Sheik, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, some of those
Mostly,
names sound really familiar, man.
oh,
All right, man. Well, RIP to Mr. Brett Wyatt, the
Bray
big man.
Wyatt,
I want
yeah.
to go back a little bit into boxing, man. And, going back to nostalgia and just great memories.
Hmm.
One of my favorite memories, well, there's been a couple, I guess, in the last 10 years, just in recent
Hmm.
memory. Not,
Was that?
and for some reason, when I was just thinking out loud, it was just I don't think there was a better moment than when Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua. That was one of my favorite moments in probably the past 20 years, right? Then there's like Maidana when he beat Adrian Broner, right? Just because Broner was just vocal and he used to say a bunch of shit and it just felt good just to see Marcos Maidana kind of like humble his ass, right? And then there was Holly Holm kicking Ronda Rousey. And then out of nowhere, like these are like shocking moments, right? Pacquiao getting knocked out by Marquez. But then there was another fight, Badu Jack, bro, versus James DeGale. Do you remember that fight? Anyway, if you don't remember it, let me refresh your
Not
memory.
sure.
I believe James
Wait, wait,
DeGale.
wait. Is that the one with the big old gash on his forehead?
No. That was the one with James DeGale was fighting with missing teeth, bro.
Oh,
Badu Jack literally punched the teeth in him, bro. Do you remember that shit?
and then he ended up testing positive for some kind of drug.
Oh, James DeGale? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
that was a very like shocking moment because Badu Jack did also have a cut in his forehead, but I think that was
Huge.
against Juan Pascal, or
Oh,
maybe
yeah, that was it. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was because those Jean Pascal always kind of like rushes in with his head, and he fucking cuts people up, and he's also popped dirty like too many times for a gang of shit. Anyway, but yeah, I was just thinking about that Andy Ruiz moment. There's been amazing fights. Like you can go down the list of memory lane, which is like, Corrales Castillo. There's uh the modern ones. Even like Jaime Munguia versus Darenchenko. There's been an amazing amount of fights, but I don't think in terms of I guess a moment there was nothing better than seeing Andy Ruiz after like knocking down or TKOing Joshua, where he's like jumping like a fat kid, like I just got my candy, and he's like in the center of the ring, all happy. That was probably my favorite boxing moment. Like out of all my years watching boxing, that had to be my favorite moment. You know what I mean? What about you? What's your guys' favorite moment, like in boxing? It can be like the greatest fight or whatever.
Hmm. That's a very interesting question. I mean, without a doubt, that was one of the I've called it the biggest upset in the past decade.
Yeah,
Um, and I do agree with that. I think most importantly, the greatest moment to me was well,
it can be around as well. It can be a fighter. Just your greatest
no, well,
boxing.
my greatest moment in boxing, it's really my favorite fight of all time, which was uh, Corrales versus Castillo. And because everything when the day that fight happened, uh, I had just most recently installed satellite. I think back then it was like Dish, Direct TV or something, or maybe even Dish Network if I couldn't afford the good stuff. But one of our neighbors, he used to work for one of these satellite companies, and since he was my neighbor and we've grown up with the guy for the longest time, he would offer us this net package that had like every single channel, right? And the thing about having every single channel is that you don't know what to watch because you have an abundance of selections out there. So you just channel surfing. But in this case, in my case, I just kept it simple. Okay, let's just watch boxing. So I was now able to watch fights where before I was very limited to doing like watching the Mexican channels, Telemundo, Telefutura, Box Azteca, Univision, and having to watch repeat fights at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday or a Saturday. When I wanted to watch fights live, I'd have to go to family members or to these pay-per-view parties where a bunch of people would gather about. So I'd always figure out a way how to watch the fights. But in that time, I got in, satellite, and I just remember the buildup. Like HBO, if I'm not mistaken, HBO was presenting fights of each of of those two men, and they had in common a loss to one of the greatest fighters of all time, Floyd Money TBE, uh, Pretty Boy Floyd Mayweather Jr. And they just kept showing all these fights, and I was just there transfixed watching like 12 hours of fights. I think they may have started like the night before, just watching all kinds of fights. And I was so excited, and my blood was just boiling because I knew that something incredible was going to happen. And then Jim Blampley and all these guys were talking about these guys are going to go kill themselves and all kinds of stuff. And I just ran to everybody's house that I could tell. There's going to be the biggest fight in the world. You cannot miss it. You cannot miss it. You cannot miss it. And then they fought. And then when they fought, I was proven right. It was the greatest fight that the people that I told had ever seen. And in fact, it's still my favorite fight because there's so much in that fight, from knockdowns to the perception of a premature stoppage.
You're talking about Castillo Corrales, correct?
Yes, the first one. Not anything else after that. The first one, and
The rematch went 4 rounds, I think.
yeah, and then of course that guy weighed in like 8 pounds different, and Diego Corrales, of course, said, "I don't care. I'm just gonna take the fight. I already beat him once." And of course, it was just a one-handed beatdown. And I think Corrales may have, you know, done some fun stuff to prepare himself for that because he was very resentful that they would have stopped this fight after he was almost at the throes of victory. Nonetheless, that's always been my favorite moment in boxing, and I've watched a lot of boxing. I'm not saying that's the greatest fight of all time, but if anybody hasn't watched it, I would say give it a shot. Corrales Castillo won, and then I'm sure it'll be included in one of the best fights you've ever seen. But yeah, I could see how Andy Ruiz beating Anthony Joshua last minute is one of your favorite moments in boxing recently.
My
Yeah,
favorite moment. It was memorable for me. What's up, guys?
super memorable.
Hey, who's this?
Me.
This is
Oh,
Drew.
hey,
It's
Drew.
me.
There's,
It's me.
there's
Drew.
amazing moments in boxing, of course. There's No Mas moment from Robert Duran. There's Marvin Hagler versus the Hitman Hearns. Fucking first round. I mean, I think the fight only went 3 rounds, but the first round was just balls to the wall, like Abner Mares versus Leo Santa Cruz. Just
Hey, Ricky.
brutal, like short, cruel. Just there's way better moments, but
Hey.
I don't know, for some reason, just when you see Andy and how he reacts, the way
Really
he gets
memorable.
down to the ground,
Memorable for
it just brings a
us
smile
Mexicans.
to it. Just like, yeah, that was a great moment, man. I
Yeah,
hated
I
the rematch, not because Anthony Joshua won the way he won, but I just felt like
the
fuck
second one.
Andy, bro. Like was it a fluke? Why didn't you train? Now I know he was partying and living it up and just appreciating the moment, living his moment. But I was just like, don't just make it a moment. And I was like, fuck, dude, you didn't train. You came more heavier, right? And that's what I like about Joshua is that he at least does what a professional is supposed to do. He makes his adjustments and things. But I still want a rematch for a trilogy. I think it's needed and called for because one guy knocked you down multiple times and essentially stopped you. And you
Butterbean.
but
Oh, sorry.
nah, you're good. But yeah, I was just that's one of my favorite moments. I mean, there's better fights, of course, but yeah. What's going on, Drew? What about you, bro?
What's up, man? You guys talking about memorable moments
Yeah, just your
in general, or just like in like
just anything. Like when you think about boxing, right? What are the moments that you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I gotta talk about this?
I hear a
like
lot.
strangers. Like if I'm a stranger, right? And if I
Yeah.
tell you, man, Drew, why you like boxing, bro? And you're like, bro, I fucking fell in love with this sport because of this, and that. What would be those this, and that moments for you?
Man, so I mean, for me, what got me into boxing is my uncle. He showed me out to like a speed bag out in like Vallejo Pal boxing gym, and I was like 9 years old, and I remember just hitting the speed bag, and I was casual for about shit. Yeah, I'm still kind of casual, to be honest, but because I don't know everything, but that's what kind of got me started, and that was pretty memorable for me. But as a fan of boxing, man, it, there's so many moments, especially when especially with your betting, man. You're pretty good at that, man. You're pretty good at that, and I can. That's really like the most memorable ones. I mean, and I'm hearing a lot about Andy Ruiz being memorable, and that's because first ever Mexican heavyweight, and honestly, for me, it's up there, bro. Like it made me extra proud for some reason. I was like, yeah, like I'm Mexican, like I felt proud to be Mexican.
Yeah.
And like, but as far as like when you were betting, I still remember when you were betting on Fierro over fucking Machado. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember, bro. We're watching that fight in the garage, dog.
Dude, we were watching it, and I remember you called it, bro. You called it, and this dude knocked down Machado, or when he officially won. I forget, it was like by stoppage, right?
Yeah, it's by stoppage.
I still remember when, like, I didn't even bet any money, but for some reason I started jumping up with you. Remember, we were jumping up, like doing jumping. We did like jumping jacks together. We're like, yeah. That was memorable. Sure. That was memorable.
Usually, that's actually a really good point. I usually don't go like, I don't really associate myself to like boxers. I'm like, oh yeah, we listen to the same fucking music. Oh, he's Mexican, I'm Mexican, whatever the case may be, right? But to your point, when I saw that moment with Andy Ruiz, I fucking felt proud as hell.
Yeah.
I was like, not to be all corny, but I was like, fuck yeah, bro, si se puede type of shit,
Mm-hmm.
That was like, that moment can happen. And yeah, bro, that was really cool. And I think that's why it just brings a big old smile to my face, just because, like, again, Andy Ruiz was, top rank, had let him go. He signs to PBC. He beats this Russian guy like a month prior on the open stadium of StubHub in Carson, California. And then, Jarrell Baby Miller pops dirty for like 3-4 steroids. And Eddie Hearn gives Andy the call, right? And PBC allows him to cross over. And Andy sent fucking great.
Andy sent Eddie a DM, actually. Do you remember that?
Andy DM'd him?
Yeah, he went out of his way for that. He said, hey, what's up, Eddie? But maybe he was like up in line, but kind of just, raised his hand.
But no, that's true. Yeah, that's pretty. I think you might be right. He did DM him, and then Eddie Hearn was like, "Yeah, dude, fucking, let me send you a contract, and let's see what your advisors they approve it." But yeah, no, that was one of my favorite moments. Again, there's way better fights, but in terms of moments and recent memory, like when I look at Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao, right, that was a great moment as well. But I felt conned.
You felt what?
I felt conned. I was just like, bro, what the fuck? I was expecting an amazing fucking fight.
Yeah.
Essentially a glorified I mean, not even a sparring match, because I've seen sparring way better than that shit. That was just like tag you're it, and then there was maybe like one or two good punches that ended the whole fight.
Yeah.
And everything else was like, again, like,
I just thought right now, it's we've been to how many fights together, Ricky? Like 3, right?
Like you talking about like what do you mean like
live live performance fight? Like we're there. Yeah, like 3, right?
Bro, I think we've only been to 1.
No,
just the Jaime Munguia Liam Smith fight. What else we been to? Oh, we were just with the Ruben Villa one, huh? And then that's right. And what would be the third one?
Fuck.
Was it
Didn't you guys go to Vegas?
Yeah, that was the Jaime Munguia.
We went to Vegas for the Jaime Munguia versus Liam Smith. And then,
that's the one where you guys tell them the story about who was sitting right in the front and everybody was walking right by him and nobody gave him a bind.
You tell me.
Yeah.
So sad. This is gonna break your heart, guys. This is gonna break your heart.
Yeah, we were at the Hard Rock Hotel. It's about 98 to 105 degrees, but not blazing heat. More like it was, I'm in the sauna type of heat. Yeah. So you're sweating, and me and Drew, And one of our other friends, we were just, just walking right there in the entrance. And to the side where you see the HBO, trailer and the camera crew and everybody and on set, you see Miguel Cotto right there in the front in a white little shirt.
I couldn't believe it.
Just soaking in, the Las Vegas sun.
Yeah.
And nobody recognizes him. And everyone just walking by.
I know.
And then I tell Drew, I kind of tap him on the shoulder. I'm like, hey, bro, turn around. There's Miguel Cotto. And Drew turns around and he goes, oh, shit, Miguel. He turns around and this has like this epic like moment of just like
my reaction.
I'm just, honest, just joy.
Yeah.
And,
dude, I couldn't contain myself. And then
Miguel Cotto doesn't blush or anything. Miguel Cotto doesn't blush, but he kind of probably like
his
forehead and they're like, oh,
yeah. And I don't know
right here.
And trip out.
And we shake his hand, and he's obviously he's Puerto Rican, fellow Puerto Rican, Alberto Machado. He had teamed up with Golden Boy, and we shake his hand, we talk boxing, and just ask him for all this. Thank you for like all the great memories that he gave us.
You spoke to him in Spanish.
And then we took a couple of pictures with him. But yeah, that was a fantastic moment. And then the fights were really great too. Jaime Munguia versus Liam Smith. I thought Liam Smith put on a hell of a performance against Jaime. I thought that they went the distance. He did get dropped, I think maybe like in the 11th round. But
Jaime didn't get dropped.
Yeah, Liam got dropped.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought when you were watching the punches live, Liam was putting hands on Jaime Munguia, kind of like Darenchenko. In fact, I thought it was like essentially a draw, but with Jaime taking the edge plus with the knockdown, similar to Darenchenko. But yeah, I thought that's when I realized, like, bro, Liam Smith is a fucking beast. Like, that guy is tough. And obviously, when he fought Canelo, he fucking was like, what's that guy's name? That John Ryder. Like, he was like, they're good. So I think I forgot who talked about it. Oh, David V. No, he talked about. David V. Smith versus Eubank, the rematch on September 2nd. Yeah, bro, I got Liam Smith winning again by knockout.
Yeah, me too. I think
Chris Eubank, changes up his defensive style, but I just think Liam Smith is tough, and he's got in order for Chris Eubank to beat Liam Smith, he's gonna have to pop a bunch of uppercuts and use that tantalizing hand speed. If he does not let his hands go and thinks he's, Roy Jones or Floyd Mayweather with the slickness, then he's just gonna get knocked out again.
So you started getting all giddy like a like a fanboy, Drew.
Yeah, no. And Isha, Ricky forgot to tell him how I was grabbing on his shoulder, and I don't know if it was my head telling me don't do that, or if Ricky told me not to grab him on the shoulder. Did you say anything?
Hey, what do you mean grabbed him on the shoulder?
Remember, I grabbed him on the shoulder, or I put my hand over his shoulder. Yeah, while posing for
like squeezing his traps or what?
Yeah, I think
squeezing his traps.
No, it wasn't squeezing him. I just placed my hand, and I was like, am I feeling his delts or his shoulders?
I don't remember that detail, but that.
Oh my god!
But I was like, but I remember thinking that, and I was like, okay, don't grab him, And I remember telling myself in the head that I was like, oh, because I was already kind of being loud, And I think Ricky told me like, hey man, no one notices him. I'm pretty sure he likes it.
Oh yeah.
So I remember just kind of staying a little quiet after I said something, and I was like, can I take a picture with you? And then, I put my hand over my shoulder, and I remember kind of like, what the fuck, like kind of stopping myself from like actually grabbing him, because I was like fanning out a little bit. And he was a good dude. He actually spoke to me in English. He gave me like an English response. He goes, yeah, man, get a picture with me. And then Ricky, he already knew what was why he was there, I guess. And yeah, like you said, he had like a promotional fighter. He was promoting a fighter in Alberto Machado out there.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite moment in terms of real life and boxing. Like
and Tio.
Yeah, because we also met Teofimo Lopez that night. Ryan Garcia was there. Rolly Romero was there as well. But
And I remember I
we
told
spoke
Rolly.
with
Remember what I told
Teofimo
Rolly?
for like an hour. We missed the whole co-main event versus Alberto Machado.
We did.
Just because we were carrying a 45-minute conversation with Teofimo Lopez. During this time, Teofimo had a cast or a singlet around his arm because he had messed up his shoulder. And I think Teofimo might have been 7-0 around this time. And yeah, man, it was pretty cool. Yeah, that was probably
That's so cool, man.
but
yeah, no, that was a cool.
Go to the restroom.
Yeah, I don't judge you, Drew, for having reacted that way because I don't know if you guys know this, but for the longest time, Miguel Cotto was my favorite fighter. I don't care who you put him against. I was always gonna cheer for the guy. Canelo, Mosley, Pacquiao, whoever it was, I was always gonna go for Miguel Cotto because I started watching his career before he became an HBO star, fighting for Golden Boy or anybody, right? It didn't. When he had hair before he had the tattoos. I watched them from the little Spanish channels. I think it was Telemundo back then because Telemundo would cover like the East Coast fights, right? Where you watch the East Coast fights and they took place like at 8 or 9, but over here in the West Coast it's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday. So you started watching these guys from a long time, and I just loved the way that he boxed. He had like a perfect stance. His jab was great. He wasn't the kind to throw unnecessary punches. He always had great punch selection. He always had and he had crazy old body shots. I love that guy. And whenever I wanted like to teach boxing, I would look at him and say, look, that's how you plant your legs. This is how you throw a jab. This is how your body's supposed to look. This is what a natural athlete looks like. So I became the biggest fan. When you guys told me that story, I was like, oh my goodness, I would have been going crazy because I just always loved the guy.
You know what makes him iconic to me is his pink socks. I think that's what makes him iconic right there. Like no one's ever done that, you know? Like that's what we're gonna remember Cotto, obviously for what he's done in the sport, but and I just remember those pink socks that he wore against Margarito, I believe, right? But
man,
I think he did it multiple times though, and he was a big shit. I don't even know if he was a big supporter in like cancer research, but he wore pink a lot. And
I do want to say something. I'm not too sure if I like am revealing too much, but outside of boxing, one of the greatest.
Whoa. I'm just kidding.
One of the greatest things that I ever had a privilege of experiencing was a 3-way conversation. I'm revealing too much right there. In the scope of my duties a few years back, I was able to help out the survivors of Maria, the hurricane, in the island of Puerto Rico. I was helping people that survived that massive hurricane. The government went over there to rebuild homes, share food, and basically process disaster claims through FEMA. And I was able to help a lot of people. It's incredible, like the kind of heartbreak and the devastation that island suffered. It was really incredible. Nonetheless, I had the opportunity to help out the mother of the fighter who I used last as my emoji, Hector Macho Camacho, and her name was. It didn't strike me initially because her last name was different. It was Matias. But if you know something, like in most Latin American countries, when a lady marries the man, they assume the children especially, they assume the father's last name. So the father of Hector Macho Camacho was Camacho. She was the mother, but her last name was Matias. And after I helped her, she revealed who she was. And I don't know why, but I think I just started talking about, like how I have a fondness for the island of Puerto Rico because they've created some of the greatest fighters of all time. And I likely mentioned some stupid stuff like Miguel Cotto's my favorite boxer. And then she probably just opened up and said, well, my son is so and so. And I was like, third, what? And she went on and she pulled my ear. But by pulling my ear, I meant she kept me enthralled in a conversation for 45 minutes or so as she broke down Hector Macho Camacho's history and how he grew up in New York, how he was a bad kid, always getting into trouble, but that he was a wonderful son and that he was a feisty one and that he would fight anybody, regardless of what your size was or your experience was or what your position was in the barrio, because those were some tough streets. And that he was a bad kid, but a wonderful son. And she told me of all of these things about him and his fight and how it broke her heart when he got assassinated and everything. And that part right there, that one-on-one intimate conversation with that lady is the one thing that I felt the greatest moment that I can remember clearly, because it left me so impressed that a lady figured. And here's the thing, guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Puerto Ricans don't like people of Mexican descent. I'm an American, but my family has a lineage going back to Mexico for generations, and I'm what you would call first or second generation American. But they notice it in your accent that you are not from the East Coast, you're not from Florida, you're not from New York, you're definitely not in Puerto Rico, and you talk differently than they do. And as soon as you say that where you're from, you say I'm from California. Say, well, where are your family from? And some people would actually say, where are your family from? And I go, well, I'm an American from California, but my people are from Mexico. And believe me not, at least 3 or 4 people that I was meant to help say, nope, I don't want to deal with him. I don't want to deal with him. I don't trust Mexicans. And I was like, what you mean? I'm an American. Like, but the reason they don't have they have some strong feelings towards people of Mexican descent is because there has been one of the greatest rivalries in the sport of boxing involves Mexicans and Puerto Ricans. Every time you put a Mexican and Puerto Rican together, it's like putting 2 fighting roosters. They'll just go to the death. They'll forgo all of their skills. They'll just come forward and throw with everything. It's like they both see red and they just go violently at each other. And she took the time to tell me her son's story without judging me for where my people were from. And she left an impression on me, and I love her for having entertained me with that story, because I don't know, you can tell that she was so proud and still so heartbroken. It was incredible, actually.
Hey, that's a good story, bro. Actually, you never even told me that before. That's the first time I heard of that.
Because you
Yeah, you could tell me.
yeah, because it depends. If you divulge it's- certain things, in the confidence of people, it may just seem unprofessional or otherwise. But it was just a conversation like yours had with Miguel Cotto. It was something that he shared with you and she shared with me.
It was Ricky that actually had a conversation, but you said like good luck in Spanish or something like that to Miguel. But no, I was gonna say it was regarding Ricky's comment. Margarito versus Cotto was a great fight. that definitely needs a rewatch. The conspiracy behind it is was even crazier. I was gonna ask you, are you talking about the whole glove, like how it, how it turned, like it hardened once it
Yeah, the plaster of Paris. Yeah,
is
because
that okay?
everybody knows like a commission signs off on the hand wraps. In fact, it is a popular thing that most trainers are right there overseeing the process as well, because there's a
Mhm.
lot of method of stacking and illegal hand wrap use, and
Well,
even like
that's
sometimes like Sergey
stacking.
Kovalev, they'll give him a brand new glove and he's punching the wall just to break it in. These are things that you're not supposed to do, so there's always some oversight. So I believe that fight probably happened in Nevada. So the
Mm,
Nevada State Athletic Commission approves of it. They
mm,
sign off, and so everybody like, oh, it's like a leper. You blame Margarito. He's the fault man. He did it on purpose. He cheated Cotto. There's no way, because that was Cotto's first loss.
mm.
So people couldn't believe that a guy that with that skill, that determination, that athletic ability, right, of Cotto could get beat essentially by a come forward, Mexican, right?
Yeah.
There's always that like connotation. There's like, oh, you're just a come forward, flat footed Mexican, like it's like almost like people try to shit on it.
Yeah.
And Margarito, like if you go watch him, the dude's a fucking El Terremoto, bro. Like that dude is
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
Dude beat
Stylistically too.
he was beating everybody, even like
Yeah.
Sergio Martinez and a lot of these other fighters when they were up and coming, bro. Just
Mm.
a strong dude.
Yeah.
Like Subriel Matias, just fucking punches
Mhm.
and punches and tiring you out and just coming out. Bro, he was fucking
He's
badass.
huge. He has a big back, bro. Like
Huge,
he has
bro. Super huge dude. He's fucking
Yeah.
6 feet tall.
oh
Yeah, Margarito is that's a bad, scary dude.
mhm.
Yeah, actually,
But,
Drew, this might be a good. Let's ask Drew his opinion, right? So for the past, I think we definitely had this conversation, right? Because the last live that we had, I was mentioning to the homie Ricky that uh, Matias from the island of Puerto Rico, uh,
Yeah.
he killed a man about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
I heard.
he killed this Russian or an up and coming Russian. Both of them were undefeated. Both of them were about the same age.
Maxime.
Uh, Maxim Dadashev. Yeah, I was watching Dadashev a few fights, prior to that, maybe two fights, and I was like, "Whoa, this kid is trouble." And Matthias, I had just watched one fight, and I was like,
A
"Oh,
good
okay,
thing or
this
a
kid
bad
is
thing?
trouble." Hmm?
Like trouble as a good thing or a bad thing?
No, trouble like he's trouble for his opponents because he was
Okay.
just yeah. So I knew it was going to be a very violent fight, and it absolutely was. And we were watching it. I was watching it with. I think I always watch fights with like my mother, uh, and my father. So we were sitting there and watching these fights, and they were both like, it's those kind of fights where the ref just goes to everybody's corner and make sure, are you okay? Are you okay? Looking at their eye, are you okay? Every round it was like that for both of them. But Dadashev was starting to get lazy-eyed. It was still getting a little just sluggish, but he was still going hard. And it was becoming very like quickly it started becoming favorable for Matthias. And he walked to the corner and he sort of like slumped there, if I remember correctly, because I've seen this fight and repeat a couple of times before. I think he slumped there, and he sort of like, if I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm imagining, but I think he slumped his body over. And I told my folks, I said, if he throws up, he's dead. Uh, and yep, they put the bucket there, and he starts to throw up. They stop the fight, if I'm not mistaken, throw up. They start taking him out of the ring, but as soon as he's taken out of the ring, he starts to faint. And now they're picking him up and they walk him back. And it's a scary moment. In that moment, I knew he was dead. Now, homie Ricky just somehow didn't watch that fight. So I told him about how Matthias is a come forward fighter with a lot of power. And he's the type of fighter that is willing to take all of your punches to see if you can take his. And the last opponent that he fought a Argentinian, if I'm not mistaken, last name Ponce. And here's the thing about Argentinians: their diet consists a lot of meat, flesh, beef in particular. So they're just strong, dense muscle tissue type of fighters. And you can just look at any fighter that there's from Argentina. They're just so tough. And he fought that guy last time, and he was taking that guy's his punches. I mean, that guy threw 100 punches, probably landed half of them into the body and into the face of Matias, and Matias just kept on coming forward until he stopped him. And me and homie Ricky are just talking about what would happen, because the rumor has been that Devin Haney might fight Matias if he doesn't get pro gra. And I'm saying, he's saying absolutely Devin Haney is gonna box his ears off. And I'm saying, I it's not that I doubt that he'll box his ear off. What I'm saying is, can he continue to do that with the relentless pressure and power that Matias is gonna bring without getting caught? And my question to you is, who do you think has that fight for a win? Devin Haney at his very first fight at 140, taking on the champion who's killed a man, or Matias?
Yeah, man. I need to take a look at Matias. I'm hearing a lot of hype around that guy, especially with the hardcores. You guys think he's a boogeyman? I'm hearing he's a boogeyman of the division. You guys really think that?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
think he's, yeah. Because when I look at his resume, he's beating a lot of like Uzbekistan, Russian, European fighters, right? And they're most of them are undefeated. I was just watching right now the first, not the first fight, but the fight with Matias and Jukinbayev. Right, this happened in May 29, 2021, and that was a very good fight. Like Matias was getting wobbled, and in fact, that's a great victory that Matias had. I still haven't even finished it. I'm in round 7. I don't know if they go to 12, but yeah, it's Matias had to dig deep, and he was getting caught and wobbled left and right. And that guy is being trained by Manny Robles. It's just, I don't know how Matias wins. He did drop him earlier, like in the 3rd round, but it's a great fight, and it's on PBC if you guys want to watch it. It's
Warp Speed. You said you were gonna ask me a question.
Oh yeah, the question was, who do you think takes that fight, Devin Haney or Matias?
See, I need to do my studying on Matias, but
yeah,
so far my gut is telling me Devin, but that's across the street, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a PBC fighter. PBC fighter versus a freelancer.
And that's what I mean, that it's hard to for him to get those fights, you know, because they're across the street and all that. But
Devin Haney's independent.
They went to Perspid for the Herbashev fight, another undefeated fighter with Matias. So Matias is doing he's doing the road work, bro.
Yeah,
he's fighting all these undefeated dudes that nobody. He's basically fighting the Victor Postals of the world.
Yeah,
the fucking Akhmardalievs and what's that Russian not Uzbekistan middleweight dude?
Alam Kalulai.
Yeah. Wait, I'm not even butcher that name. But basically, that's who Subriel Matias is fighting. He has to fight all these tough dudes that you know, the guys are like Arnold Barboza and Jose Ramirez and all these guys are refusing to eliminate. Matias is eliminating all these undefeated you know, contenders that nobody even has heard or watched before.
Something just popped up in my head right now. What about Gary Antonio Russell?
But you see, even Russell, he's fighting a lot of guys like, you know, the 40-year-olds. He's fighting, you know, the Victor Postals of the world, which is still a very tough, credible fight and fighter and boxer because he's rangy and he has that long guard European style. But Matias is like, he's doing the road work, bro. You know what I mean? He's eliminating all these dudes. Gary Antoine Russell,
is his style
like they don't really believe in him to be fighting all these top dudes, kind of like Boots Ennis. See, Boots Ennis is fighting a lot of guys that we're not kind of giving them credit for, right? But that guy Villa or Roban Oro that he beat, even the other guy, Clayton, who was undefeated. Like he's beating a lot of these dudes, even the guy Karen. He's beating a lot of these dudes that nobody really knows, but you know, to the eye, to the trained eye, you know, those are very difficult styles to defeat. But like, for instance, again, that guy Gary Antoine Russell, he's fighting Rancis Barthélemy, Victor Post, or Giovanni Santiago. And if you compare him versus Subriel Matias, bro, it's like that's a baby resume, and Matias is a fucking killer, bro.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
So stylistically, is he like a Danielito, the guy that Rigas fought, or is he kind of like more based on his feet? Like, is he stationary?
Who?
Matias? Matias, yeah.
Like, nah,
What's his
his
style?
fighting style, honestly, is like an athletic version of Margarito. High guard, always coming forward, throws punches, like a bunch of fast punches.
Yeah.
Is willing to take your punches so he can land his. The more you hit him, the more he starts throwing at you. Yeah, that's Matias, bro. But
Wow,
like,
that's so true.
he's fucking mean, bro. Like,
Yeah,
it's so true.
wearing Everlast gloves. He's not even wearing like Cleto Reyes or MXN, like, you know, fucking hard gloves. He's wearing like Everlast, you know what I mean? Which is like, I don't know, winning.
So he really does stand out from the rest of his countrymen.
Who, Matias?
Yeah.
Like Puerto Rican? Yeah, for sure, dog.
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean, countrymen?
Because there's not a lot of, you know, big names in out of Puerto Rico
Well,
today.
Well, guys, remember that the island of Puerto Rico is not a country. It's a satellite of the United States of America. You can consider it to be the 51st state. It's what they call a commonwealth. So they just so what it is
Puerto Rican, though.
Huh?
Tell that to a Puerto Rican that lives on the island. I guarantee.
Bitch, yeah. Those libertad. The libertad. No way. Those some of them are very radicalized.
So, for instance, look at Matias's resume. He's 19-1, 19 KOs, right? He's fucking Artur Beterbiev. He's gonna fight Ergashev, another undefeated fighter. He just knocked out Jeremiah Sponce. Petros Anyanyan is the guy that beat him, and then he avenged it. He fought that guy Zukimbayev, who's very good. He's 18-0. He also beat Malik Hawkins, 18-0. He beat Maxim Barashev, 13-0, and he's the guy that he killed. Bro, he's fighting nothing but undefeated. He's basically pulling a Josh Taylor, and no one's giving him credit because
nobody. It's just like everybody forgets that name. Yeah, because that's the thing though. How many fights has he taken in the past 4 years? Can you see? Is it like one fight a year?
Who, Matias?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard he doesn't fight that
essentially much. One fight a year. Only in 2019 is when he fought 3 times, and 2018. No, like in his early years, he fought a lot. Like 2016, he fought 3 times. 2017, 4 times. 2018, 3 times. 2019, 3 times, and then since then, it's pretty much probably when he signed with PBC, it's been 1 time a year.
Wow. So that's the thing about the PBC. They're just not exploiting the momentum that these fighters have. Because right now, the fact that look, that's a very crazy way of maintaining a fighter busy, right? You give him 1 fight a year, and when they fight, it's an undefeated fighter, a young undefeated fighter. It's like you're setting him up to lose, but somehow he still triumphs. Somehow he still comes out on top. Subriel is a mean man. That's why I'm saying he might be the most underestimated dark horse in that whole division.
And maybe
that's the definition of he's a bad man, bro.
Yeah, maybe he's struggling to put butts in seats, because what it looks like is maybe he's happy with the paychecks. I mean, obviously everyone wants to get stable for the rest of their lives, but maybe them paychecks pay off for the rest of the year, And,
I think what they're doing is that they know
how's he living then?
They notice that he's a tough motherfucker.
Is he working?
And he's fighting, and he's willing to fight all these dudes.
Does he have 2 jobs?
He's gonna be shock worn and overworked, and then they're gonna put somebody on him just to take all this credit and be like, yeah, I beat him, so I don't ever have to fight all those dudes that he beat. You feel me? I think that's what it is. It's kind of like Mario Barrios. Oh, Tank fights him. Oh, Keith Thurman. Okay, Ugas. There's no
fault is it then?
Like, bro, Mario Barrios is a good fighter. The fact that you guys are just kind of like tossing him around and just having him fight all these fucking tough fights, it's like, bro, why don't you do that for Keith Thurman and all them? Same thing with Matias. I feel like they're just using them, and all these tough fights, and they're brutal fights, bro. Like, I'm just telling you, his style is a Margarito come forward style. He's gonna be taking a lot of punishment, and he's gonna have a short career.
Really
I
short
think
career.
he's gonna have a short career because these fights are brutal, bro. Like
Mm.
when you think Subriel Matias, you do not think finesse. You think brutal, short, and cruel, like Leviathan Thomas Hobbs shit. It's fucking scary, bro.
It sounds like stylistically he's able. He'll give Devin a hard time.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he's gonna give Devin a hard time. But there's been moments where I'm like, oh man, if you make it boring and just jab, I think Matias will have a hard time getting around those jabs.
Mhm.
But yeah, you still have to have some legitimate pop to keep him honest, bro. Because if
Mhm.
not, you're just gonna come forward and just keep rocking your shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty good, man.
So, gentlemen, if you don't mind me interjecting, so we our members, our chat members, Mr. Vince Vargas. I'm not too sure if we addressed this, but he's actually, as he's listening to us, uh, you know, he writes, my favorite moment was Chavez versus Taylor. Mexico flag versus America flag. The first fight. Richard Steele stops the fight after Taylor got knocked seconds to go in that 12th. Chavez was behind. Yeah, I remember that fight. Yep, I remember that fight. The whole place got. We used to go to the outskirts in this big old if like a house, if big old in the fields, and these folks they would open up their whole backyard and put up tables, and they had one of these big old. I think they had two big old TVs like what they used to have back then. They were like the size of a pickup truck, these huge 60-inch screen TVs, but they were like a pickup truck, very boxy, bulky, and they were just huge. And I don't know how you even got them over there. And they used to have this parabolic antenna, huge 20-foot parabolic antenna, like the kind that you point towards the moon to see if you catch any radio feedback to indicate that there's life on other planets, those kind of stuff, because that's what it used to take back then to watch these kind of fights on HBO. And they would charge us to go in there a few bucks or whatever, and then they'd sell beer and they'd make a gang of money. But that fight right there was always controversial because a lot of people thought that the stoppage was premature. Um, and I'm not too sure. I think I think that that Pernell Whitaker. Oh no, Pernell Whitaker. That's another one, huh? um, Taylor was hurt, um, but I'm not too sure if he was that hurt to the point of having to say stop him from fighting. But again, this was Chavez. Uh, uh, who was about to near his 90th fight back then, if I'm not mistaken. He was reaching 100. They wanted to see if he could go 100 fights without losing one. So I could see how business side came into play, but that really was a very memorable moment. Nonetheless, Eric, another listener, Eric Bautista says Margarito versus Cotto 1, De La Hoya versus Vargas, very fun. Trinidad in the mix, throw that guy in there. Yeah, and then Mr. Vince Vargas ends it by saying, I remember when HBO boxing was the shit. Lampley, Larry Merchant, Sugar Ray. Those were the days.
I actually got a picture with Larry Lampy when I was at the Jaime Mugia Ian Smith fight. And oh yeah, and fucking Jesse Vargas. Remind me. Yeah, it was Lampy, not Merchant. There we go. But yeah, man.
I'm gonna say this, man. In the past month, right, we were
Hmm.
thinking a lot of these fights were 50-50 on paper, right?
Hmm.
But based on how the events turned out, Fulton shouldn't rematch Naoya Inoue.
Hell to the no,
And
No,
man.
no way.
rematch
No.
Bud Crawford.
That's worse than
And
this. Yeah.
Valdez shouldn't rematch Navarrete. Of
Mm.
those three fights
No.
that we all perceive to be 50-50, none of those should have a rematch, bro.
None of them.
No,
None
none
of
of it.
them.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, you know my policy, guys. I'm a hardliner on rematches. Rematches are left only for draws, nothing else. Not the business side, not your controversy. If there's a winner at the end whose arm is held up, that's it. Finito. Move on. You lost. Stay behind. This
And
guy moves up, and that's it.
neither of those fights were like Loma Devin close. It wasn't even close to that. Like they were decisive wins. I think the Daniel I did it again. Oscar Valdez, Navarrete should fight like down the line if the stars align. You know, like Oscar gotta make a comeback, you know, and just start knocking dudes out again. And then he'll probably get this opportunity unless Navarrete decides to move up again, which he should not do. He should wait. He should. I was gonna say he should collect all the belts, but the rest of the belts are on the other end, right? For 130 on the other side of the street.
Yeah, but
I
Yeah,
think.
I don't
look.
think. Here's another thing. The reason why none of those fights should, have a rematch is because they were so dominant from one side. That's the obvious part. But the other part is when you have a rematch, you're taking away what we witnessed,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
almost like we're trying to downplay it. Oh, if Errol Spence fights Bud Crawford at 175, guess what? He's not going to be drained.
Yeah.
Bud
Yeah.
Crawford warned us
Mhm.
that when this fight does happen, people are gonna make up all these excuses. Oh, he was drained.
Yeah.
He's a former self. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we take away what actually happened by making the rematch. Look no further than Tyson Fury versus Wilder. The first fight was a draw. So then you have a rematch. And then guess what? Tyson Fury fucked him up. He made his adjustment. It's fucking
Yeah.
slept Wilder. A lot of people couldn't believe it. So then people were like, no, we have to have a third time. He
That's
was slapping
ridiculous.
his gloves. They made the craziest excuses in the whole fucking world, right? And then, but another thing that it also downplays the victory and the significance of what, and as a viewer to observe what just happened,
Yeah.
right?
He
It
like
also makes it difficult for that fighter who got the victory to wake up again and have that same motivation.
mhm.
Because he's like, bro, I have nothing to prove. I fucked you up.
Fury.
I don't even have this image. Like if you told Navarrete, hey Navarrete, you trained really hard for the Valdez the first time, right? And he goes, hell yeah. I wanted to prove to myself that I can beat that dude because he's always beating me up in sparring, and I wanted to fucking show the world that I'm that dude. Or what about the rematch? Honestly, I don't really want it. He's not gonna wake up with that same passion and fire in his belly to run that extra mile or train or go those extra sparring sessions because guess what? The first ass beating was so like again dominant that it's just like I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, but
each other's
It's fair
hearts.
for Bud. It's not fair for Naoya Inoue. It's not fair for Navarrete. Let
Yeah.
them continue their career with other great shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
So remember the
don't
reason.
give us a fucking rubber match, bro. Like I don't want to fucking see that shit.
One thing that we have to recall though, when it comes to Fury Wilder having rematch, the first fight was uh considered a split draw.
Yeah.
So hey, that's when you have a draw. That's when you have a rematch, a draw, and that's justified. The second one seals the deal. There's a clear winner and move on. But the reason they wanted to run it again is because it was so profitable for them to do that. So, but see, that's the whole messed up side of the sport, right? That those two guys held up the belts for 3.5 years about, while they were from the first fight to the second one to I think Tyson Fury took a fight in between the first and the second, and then they rematched, and then they had the third. It just held up the belts. There was no way that and even the third fight, guys, there was some leeway there. They Tyson Fury could have avoided taking on the three-peat because he was in negotiations with Anthony Joshua and Matchroom to make that fight, but it never happened because Bob Arum and whatnot, they were playing they were just trying to screw Eddie and Joshua over. Nonetheless, the first fight ended in a draw. Guess what? Run it back. But in the fights that you guys mentioned, there was no such thing as a draw. It wasn't even a competitive fight. And in fact, if look, the only reason there's even a something enticing about a Spence versus Crawford rematch fight, the only thing enticing about it is the possibility that weight may have played a factor in the defeat of Errol Spence, because although Errol Spence has gradually been looking worse for wear after the car crash, and I actually said it that Yordenis Ugas made Spence look the worst version of Spence ever. Nonetheless, it doesn't change the fact that he was gradually getting worse. And I do believe there's something having to do with the lingering effects of that car crash. Nonetheless, the only possibility that that fight is even competitive is the fact that we're giving Errol Spence Jr. 7 more pounds to make weight with a bit of more facility, so that he may just be more competitive. But something tells me, guys, when I said that it's the car accident, probably, and the fact that he's not living the fighter's lifestyle, that's not going to change. Terrence Crawford is living the fighter's lifestyle, and now he has the confidence of knowing that he just destroyed this guy. Now the other guy is going to have that mental trauma of knowing, boy, this dude put hands on me. And he's going to walk in there with more of a tentative reservation at trying to fight, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Bro, I got a question. When people say, oh, they're not living the fighter lifestyle, right? What do they mean by that? Because Errol drinks in the off season. He parties in the off season. But when it comes down to brass tacks, he makes weight. He's working hard. He's showing the discipline. Now, when they mean the fighter's lifestyle, is Errol partying and drinking during camp? Absolutely not. So he lives the fighter's lifestyle. It's just, are you supposed to live the fighter's lifestyle all year round? Because other professional athletes, basketball players, none of them live, the NBA lifestyle. You know what I mean? Oh, you have to train and, hydrate and, not drink and party. Errol lives that fighter's lifestyle, bro. Right? Now, should he be disciplined in the off season? I mean, as long as he's not ballooning up to 250 pounds because he has to cut off 100, but he doesn't get that big. So, like, even then, like, no, he lived the fighter lifestyle. Don't try to take away anything that Bud did. It's simply Bud was better.
No, that's not only it. That's not only it. We know that he's better.
Check this out. Bud outplayed Errol in every aspect, bro. In the negotiations, he was willing to walk away. He walked away, and he took an in-between fight. He's like, bro, I'm not going to wait a whole year then fucking fight you. I'm going to sharpen my tools. He took a fight, got paid with not Triller, but I don't know who he got paid for. Fought David Avanesian, and then fought Errol Spence.
Black Prime.
Well, Errol had to do like a whole year of waiting, took no in-betweens, and he stuck to his guns. Bro, Bud outplayed him in every maneuver known to mankind. In the negotiation table, he was able to, get 50-50, guaranteed, all these things. Got an in-between fight, and then fucked him up. Bro, yeah. In other words, Spence is he just can't fuck with Bud Crawford. I'm not gonna be disrespectful. We just can't fuck with him, bro. Like,
so stylistically,
aspect of business and the fucking fight game.
Stylistically, Terrence Crawford always had Spence's number, but there is such thing. Look, Terrence, it may be, to tell you the honest truth, Terrence Crawford may not even be living the fighter's lifestyle. Maybe he's just very good at concealing his extracurricular activities. Maybe that's going on. He's been a very private individual. We've addressed the fact that his privacy has kept him from becoming a more well-known household name. But we do know that we've seen Errol Spence in the club drinking it up. We know that he's flown out of a car. We've seen him in these embarrassing videos where he's slurring his words, obviously under some sedation or some kind of product that puts him in that kind of a stupor. And we don't see the same thing.
You want to go Dubai?
Yeah. I don't like to laugh about anybody's tragedy, guys. Come on.
You seen what Bud said after the fight press conference, right? He said, or they asked him, so what'd you eat? He didn't even eat anything crazy, bro. Like after the fight, he said, nah, I haven't even anything crazy, just probably like a peanut butter, or what he said, something hella small. But dude, he lives like that, bro. He probably like off season is probably still like 10 pounds away from playing, like.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. Not some guy that blows up 200 pounds.
Not someone that has to lose over 20 pounds. He probably just had to lose 10 pounds, and he was already like sharpening his tools by the time he was already weighed in. He was just trying to feel better. He was just trying to feel better at 147.
All righty, guys. Well, on that note, let me know if you're able to get another person for the panel. So you guys can go live tomorrow and talk about wrestling and be much more elaborative.
So
No, what?
actually,
I'll
I
remember
do
it.
have news. I do have news.
On that
Um,
note, save it
wait,
for
wait, 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 wait,
tomorrow.
wait. Yo, wait up, wait up.
We got
So
2
I
minutes.
can confirm. I can confirm that my cousin has some time tomorrow to discuss WWE going ons. So we got that secured. There's only one thing though. He's in some state of Milwaukee, and I'm sure that's a time zone difference. So when we start at 7:30, it's likely going to be like 9:30 for them or 8:30 for them or whatever. So we have to factor that in. If you guys are down, you guys want to start it off at 6:30, or maybe keep it money for 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
Maybe. We'll see.
Up to you guys.
All right, guys. On that note, have a good night. I'm sure we can make do.
Yeah.
Stay
All
safe.
right. Good night, everybody. Good night, Mr. Vargas, Larry Liston, Eric Bautista.
Drew.
There's another gentleman, David V. All good night. Drew, the homie Ricky, out.
Peace.